Welcome back. We're examining how realistic it is for immigrants to expect the American dream to become a reality. In order to reach the US, they often make incredible sacrifices, and once they arrive, there's no guarantee of finding success. Still, they come, adding to the diversity of the nation and making their own unique mark. Well, joining me now is syndicated columnist, veteran journalist, and best-selling author Stephen Roberts. His latest book is From Every End of This Earth: 13 Families and the New Lives They Made in America. It's a follow-up to his earlier work, My Father's Houses, detailing his own family's immigrant story. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Pleasure, Riz.
So now this subject is not new to you, of course. You know, as a journalist and author, you've been interested in telling the story of America's various communities for some time now, and so much of that victory of Ronald Reagan in 1980 was not a surprise to you, because you saw that, you know, urban and ethnic communities, the traditional democratic communities, were supporting him. What is it that interests you about immigrant communities?
Well, the first thing is I grew up in one. My own grandparents were immigrants. They came from Russian Poland. I lived in the house with one grandfather. My other two grandparents lived 3 blocks away. I thought everybody grew up that way. I never had a babysitter I wasn't related to.
Every
grandmother had an accent. But these were folks from Italy and Ireland and Poland. In my hometown today, there's Arabic writing on the storefronts. It was not there. The winner of the essay contest in my hometown, Bayonne, New Jersey, for an essay on the Holocaust, was a young Pakistani woman who wears a headscarf. Believe me, there were no young women like that in my high school. So it's things that are continuous, that never change, the pain of separation, and yet there's also this wonderfully fresh infusion of people from new countries with new stories. So it's both the old and the new that interest me.
Is there a commonality? I mean, when you look at your own story and the 13 you have in this book, is there a common theme?
Yes. Every immigrant in the history of the world has felt the pain of separation. There's a wonderful poem written by Rumi, the 13th century mystic, wrote in Farsi. And he wrote the Song of the Reed, in which he said, when you take a reed out of a reed bed and you blow through it, it makes a particularly mournful and sad sound. And an immigrant from Afghanistan told me, Maria Aziz said to me, that's the way I feel about being plucked from the reed bed of Afghanistan. Now, she fled the communists. She was happy to leave. But every immigrant in the history of the world leaves something behind. The air never smells the same. The food never tastes the same. Your graves of your ancestors are back home. You always leave something behind.
And that's what I was wondering, what prompts them to leave that all behind? I mean, if you know, in listening to the stories you heard, what was it that really drew them? I mean, I guess an obvious one is economic hardship, but is there another theme? Is there a greater dream? Is this the American dream?
I sum it up in one word. That word is children. You know, I think it's, they make these sacrifices. And because, as one woman from Vietnam said to me, we are the sacrifice generation. The generation who makes this journey is never fully at home in the new country, but can't go home again either. They're in limbo. But why do they sacrifice? Sacrifice for their kids. And that's the driving dream. And the other thing that I've always found so compelling is that the experience of immigration, I think, is one of the most dramatic of all human journeys. It takes such courage. It takes such imagination to think of a life outside your homeland. And then to have the tenacity and resilience to make it happen. I've always thought one of the great geniuses of America is the most dynamic are the ones who come. The dull ones, they're back in Poland, they're back in Russia, they're back in Pakistan. They never make it here.
Is it getting easier, though, when you look at how the world is interconnected with satellite TV and Hollywood, you know, portraying the lives of people in such a realistic manner? Has it become easier? I mean, is it easier for those people to imagine life elsewhere because they've almost lived it on the big screen?
Yes, good point. Now, I have a family in this book from Kharkov in the Ukraine. I said, how did you think of a life outside this stolid, suffocating Soviet experience? This woman said, well, I had a family friend who moved to Israel, and she wrote letters back to Kharkov. And she said at one point, you know, in Israel, we eat oranges the way you eat potatoes. That orange became the symbol of the future. She said we'd get communist directors. They're only allowed communist films and directors like Fellini and Ponti. She said, I never followed the plot lines in these movies. I just looked at the apartments. I wanted to see the furniture. I wanted to see the bathrooms, what they look like. So each person puts together a dream out of these little pieces. And yes, it is certainly true that today people have so much more access through the internet and other means of communication that the dreams perhaps are a bit easier to come by, but not easier to fulfill. Maybe you have the dreams easier. It's still an awfully difficult task to make it come true.
Let me get a couple of emails to you, because we had people writing in with some questions for you, if I could. Abdulaziz Jaffer sent this in to us through our Facebook page, saying, people are free to excel in America, but when they fall, it's a free fall. There is almost nothing around to help individuals, but plenty for corporations. The healthcare debate exposes much of the unforgiving America. And when you say it's not easy to make that dream come true, even though it's easy to have the dream, when you look at the way things have gone in America, and this kind of, if you have the money, you can succeed. You know, if you pay, you can get cover, healthcare, and so on. When you look at that situation, how has it changed for immigrants coming in?
Well, you know, I think that there's always been a mistake, a profound mistake about immigration to America. One family from Burma, Muslim family from Burma, three daughters said to me about their own father. They said he suffered from the streets are paved with gold mentality. And what they meant was he thought it would be easy. It wasn't easy. The streets have been always paved with opportunity, but never with gold. No immigrant who makes it through a handout. You got to work very hard, and there's no guarantees too. But it is true about immigrants that they have a certain tenacity, sometimes tinged with desperation, because they don't have any options. They don't have family connections to fall back on. They don't have money to fall back on. They have one thing, themselves. Their hard work, their tenacity. A new census study just came out just this week in the United States showing that immigrants actually make more money than native-born people and go farther in school, have higher degrees of education. Why? Because they know that's all they have.
Stephen, another question here that came in from a viewer. Tariq Khan in Mardan in Pakistan wrote in saying, America is the land of opportunity for those who have the ability, knowledge and education and are blessed without noticing what religion and caste they belong to. Blessed not noticing, you know. So I wonder if to some degree there's a demand in America for people to assimilate, that this melting pot wants to soak people up, that people can't keep their identity. Or do you find it to be the opposite?
Well, I think both are true at the same time. I do think America demands, and I actually agree with this. I think if you're going to be an American, you should learn English, you should understand the country, you should be loyal to the country. I also think it's very important you don't forget where you came from. I think it's possible to do both. There's these three Muslim sisters in my book, grew up in Southern California. They actually went to college and put on hijab. You know, they didn't put on miniskirts, they put on hijab. It was their father was outraged. He said, you can't do this in America. You know, be that religious. And they looked at him and said, because we're in America, we can do it. And this one woman said to me recently, she said, I had to define myself for a application to grad school. All three of these women grad school, these three sisters. And I said, well, how did you define yourself? She said, well, I said, I'm a Muslim, I'm an immigrant, I'm a strong woman of color, and I'm my mother's daughter. And then she paused and said, and I'm a California chick. Now, that's both, right? She's a strong woman of color, she's a Muslim, she has not forgotten where she came from. If anything, her experience in an American college has reinforced her devotion to her religion. She's actually more religious Muslim than her parents ever were. And she's also a California chick, and she can be both at the same time.
Just a thought with about a minute to go. With these 13 fantastic stories in the book, Stephen, did it get you looking ahead to thinking how the profile of America might change once you got not just the first, second, third, fourth, but you know, you're going down 10, 12, 20 generations in
Sure.
America?
It's the browning of America. You know, you know how many, what percentage of white males over 30 voted in the last election in America? 28%. That's all. That's all. And you now have 5 states in America where the majority are minority. You have 5 that are about to turn. You are not going to be a successful politician in this country in the future if you don't understand that the demographics of this country are changing and changing very rapidly. And I think that is certainly, it's not 20 years in the future, that's right around the corner.
Stephen Roberts, what a pleasure talking to you. Good luck with the book. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Remember, you can follow the show on Facebook, where you'll find updates on future topics. Post your questions and comments. We'll be sure to include them in the program. That's it from me and the team. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.